My name is Matteo. I'm a security specialist at Elastic, based in Boulder, Colorado. I work with many organizations in North America that are using Elastic for security analytics. Joining me, we have Cami Lewis. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Cami Lewis. I'm a security community advocate. I've been at Elastic for about 2 years, and I'm based in the Denver area.
Jamie?
Hi, my name is Jamie Butler. I'm somewhat new to Elastic. I came over with the acquisition of Endgame, which was an endpoint security technology. So I've been at Elastic for about 9 months.
Thank you for joining, Jamie. All right, so the topic of today's community event is Security AMA, again, that stands for Security Ask Me Anything. So it's an opportunity for you to ask any questions you may have about our security solution. Based on the questions, some of the questions we got in the document, they're very introductory. So I'll be happy to give you an overview of what Elastic Security is all about, and then open it up for questions. You can unmute yourself if you want to speak up, or you can use the chat feature of the Zoom webinar if you want to ask questions. And let's get started. So, first of all, what's Elastic? So Elastic is the company behind the well-known Elastic Stack, or the ELK stack, that stands for Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana. We have three primary solutions or use cases, and they all run on the top of the same stack of technology components. We started with application search. Our CEO and founder, Shai Banu, was actually the person that wrote Elasticsearch at the very beginning, before the company was founded. And since then, the community of our users started using Elasticsearch for different use cases, starting with storing logs that evolved to observability and for security. So today we're going to focus on Elastic Security and specifically on SIEM and endpoint security features that we have added in the last year or so to Kibana. So Elastic Security. So starting with our vision, when we started working on Elastic Security about 2 years ago, like we did for the observability use case, we noticed that many community members and many of our customers and users, they have been using Elastic for security. Without Elastic creating any out-of-the-box functionality designed for the security use case. So when we started working on, a couple of years ago, we decided let's double down on this use case. We want to bring a solution part of Kibana that has out-of-the-box functionality specifically designed for the security analyst, thinking about the investigation workflow. And so we have three major pillars of focus when we started working on the solution that still apply today. So the first one is eliminate blind spots, right? Search and analyze all your data, no matter volume, variety, or age. So this is something that you could do before we introduced Elastic Security. What we did was to make it easier and simpler and faster. So what we did, we created a common schema called ECS, Elastic Common Schema. That's the new default of all the content that we release, and the functionality of Elastic Security is all based on the common schema. And we also started working on data integrations, making it easier to ingest data into Elasticsearch for most common loss source types that are typically used for security, and all in Elastic Common Schema. Second was the stop threats, the scale, right? So how can you scale? You can only do so much manually when you do threat hunting or looking for threats. So our focus was to add a detection engine that allows for the easy creation of detection rules for automated detection, and also for to provide a large set of out-of-the-box detection rules that we now have. With 7.9, the latest release that was released today, I think we have close to 200 or a little bit over 200 detection rules, all aligned to the MITRE attack that come with the solution. And finally, arm every analyst. So we want really empower every analyst, even those that are, junior, tier 1 analysts that are just starting their career in cybersecurity, to be able to use Elastic Security and be efficient when they do investigations, right? So we're really put a lot of attention to the user interface and the workflows to make the learning curve the shortest possible for the analyst. This is a little recap of all the work in the last couple of years. Just to give you a frame of reference, ECS was released in April last year. The SIEM app was released as part of 7.2 in June last year. So in a little bit over 1 year, we have done a lot of progress. Today, the security team that is part of our engineering is actually the largest division within our engineering team. So security is a key area of focus. And I'm going to touch on all these different features during a demo. And again, if you have questions, I can try to tune the presentation and discussion to your questions. At a high level, what we have done since last year is we added a new application inside Kibana. We originally named it Elastic SIEM app. With 7.9, we rebranded the app to Elastic Security as we added endpoint security functionality as well. So a single user interface that allows you to manage both security events from different log source types and also protections that come with endpoint security. We added a detection engine. We added a lot of out-of-the-box content. And in October last year, we joined forces with a company called Endgame, endpoint security company. And since then, we have been working on the integration of the technology that Endgame developed into Elastic Security. And today is it's a big day for Elastic. Actually, it's a coincidence that today is the release date for 7.9. But today is the release of the first release of Elastic Security, including endpoint security functionality. Everything we do is on the open, as we always have. Actually, all the features that I will describe today are free to use. And also the repository for the detection rules is all on the open. So there is a GitHub repository with instructions on how to submit rules. We opened that about a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and we have already had many submissions from community contributors. So the idea is to use an open source schema, ECS, open technology, and open rules, so anyone can contribute to those rules. Before I jump into 7.9, let's see if you have any questions. Okay, see, we have a few questions from Mike. Okay. Integration. Okay, I'll touch on these in a minute. So 7.9 was released today, and so the major new feature or feature set in 7.9 is addition of endpoint security that is available as part of the basic subscription tier with easier than ever centralized management. So that's another big new feature that we introduced in 7.9. And this is released today as beta. So it's the first release. And if you have followed how we do releases and now we add new features, we introduce major features quite frequently. And usually during the first release or the first few releases, we may flag them as beta, meaning that, don't use this in production just yet. You're welcome to try them out. You're welcome to use them, but especially if you're a customer, we may have different SLAs for those features. And also there may be significant changes before they become GA. So the big feature of 7.9 is the addition of endpoint security, but more specifically, endpoint security part of Elastic Agent. For those of you that are familiar with Elastic, you're probably familiar with Beats and Logstash. Like Beats are lightweight data shippers that you can deploy on endpoints to collect logs, metrics, security events from the local host, and also to act as a server in a way to receive syslog messages or NetFlow from your network devices. One of the challenges with using Beats is that first of all, you may need to have multiple Beats installed on a single system. For example, if you're looking to ingest metrics, Windows event logs and maybe adding endpoint security. In the past, you would have had to install, two different beats and the endpoint security agent. So with 7.9, we introduced a new single agent. We call it Elastic Agent. So it's a single installer that you enroll, and I'll show you how that works in a minute. And after that, all the configuration is centrally managed. So centrally from Kibana, using a feature that we call Fleet, you can control, you can configure the policies for your agents. And depending on the policy that you choose to use, for example, you may choose for a specific group of servers to ingest audit data and also metrics, and maybe to ingest Nginx logs, right? So you configure all those data integrations from Kibana, and Kibana will push down to the agent a new configuration, and the agent automatically will download and configure the necessary modules and start collecting that the data that you wanted to collect. Or in the case of endpoint security, deploy, install endpoint security sensor as part of Elastic Agent that will start, first of all, generating events based on activity that is seen on the system, and also enable some protection capability that we're going to talk about in a minute. So this is a brand new feature. Again, you're welcome to start using it, but as every new feature, this is beta. We're looking to GA this in the very short term, possibly in the next minor or the following one. So we're talking about a few months before this is GA. So this is the first beta release, and we're looking for feedback from the community of users and from customers on this feature before we consider this mature enough to be GA. Data integration. So in the past, right, and still today, when you use Beats, we have been releasing support for common log source types in the form of Beats modules. And for those of you that have used Beats, you probably know the workflow of enabling a module on the Beat itself, running that setup command that will push some content to Elastic, like ingest pipelines, dashboards, and so on. All of that now with Elastic Agent is managed from Kibana. So there is a list of data integrations that you can add to a policy, to a configuration. And one of those integrations is Elastic Endpoint Security. So that's one of those integrations. And as you can see here. So again, with 7.9, first release that includes all of these. One of the questions is integration with AWS and Azure. That's actually specifically AWS. We have been working with both. So we work with all main cloud providers in the US, namely AWS, GCP, and Azure. We have been with 7.9, we put a lot of focus into detection rules for AWS. Expect the same for Azure in an upcoming release. Right now, using FileBeat or using Elastic Agent, when you configure, data integration with AWS, you can ingest logs from AWS or from Azure. With 7.9, we have been focusing on cloud detections, so out-of-the-box detection rules. I will show them to you in a minute during the demo. For AWS and for Okta, that was another area of focus for 7.9. So Ingest Manager and Fleet, and another question is Fleet onboarding uses the Ingest Managers. So just wondering if you shouldn't use Fleet. So those two concepts go together, and you'll see in a minute how that works. So endpoint security, so deep data visibility. Again, if you enable the endpoint security data integration or agent, Elastic Agent will download a module that will give you additional insights directly from the kernel. Like in Windows and Mac OS, you got the visibility on process networks, file access activity, and in Windows you got DNS, DLL, and so on. With 7.9, you get the capability of malware prevention using the machine learning model that Endgame developed. If you have any specific questions, Jamie can add more context to that. So basically, we're giving you free malware prevention for both Windows and Mac that you can use. So while you observe your infrastructure, you can also enable protection. New features 7.9. Again, I'm just going to touch on a few of the major features. This is an interface, a visualization that Endgame developed called Resolver. So if you ever use Endgame, you may have seen something very similar to this. We now added this to as an event analyzer. So whenever you look at an alert generated by the detection engine, and if the alert includes some endpoint type of data where there is a parent-child relationship, you'll be able to visualize the historical events in this graphical, or using this graphical representation. Threshold-based rules and exception workflow, another new feature. So when you create a rule, or you'll see some of the out-of-the-box detection rules that we released in 7.9. You can now look at rules that look at an aggregation of specific, certain number of events within a certain amount of time that matches the specific condition that you set. And we also added an exception workflow. So you may have exceptions that you want to add, and the capability of uploading those exceptions in value lists. So right now, this works for exclusions. So you may have a specific list of servers that you want to exclude from a specific rule. You'll be able to use this for that. And we'll add this, this workflow for inclusions as well in the near future. And the last big feature related to security that, again, technology that Endgame developed, and in this case was a technology that Endgame open sourced. EQL, that stands for Event Query Language, is a new query language that we added natively to Elasticsearch. 7.9 is the first release that supports this query language. Currently at the API level, so it's not exposed yet inside the Elastic Security app. However, we're looking to do that potentially in the next minor release, right? So I cannot share specifics, but I know that that's the next part of this. Is like first add support for the new query language in Elasticsearch, and then expose to the user interface capability to use that query language. And the initial release of those capabilities will be specifically in the detection engine. You will see the capability of enabling out-of-the-box detection rules like this one, based on EQL, or creating your own. So the EQL is more powerful than Kibana query language in a couple of ways. First of all, as you can see here, this is a query that looks at the sequence of events. Right, in this case, what files were created by known system users, first run a known system process, and later run as a system level process within an hour. So within a single rule, you're able to do this, looking at a sequence of events. Here is another couple of examples. Did net.exe run from a PowerShell instance that made network activity and wasn't a descendant of noisy service.exe. Or what are the top outgoing network connections that transmitted more than 100 megs? So notice in this case, support for pipes, again, filtering your results. So this is the new capability that EQL has. All right, so let's switch to a demo. So this was released just today, so I don't have specifically a demo environment with a lot of data, but just gonna cover this at a high level. And got another question about AWS. Again, AWS, we have support for AWS using a bit module to ingest data that is also supported by Elastic Agents. Let me just share it with you all. You can just look for AWS module for FileBeat. And here you can see that this is a module that supports reading events from S3. So from an S3 file set, ELB, access logs, VPC flow, and CloudTrail logs. And so this is the module that allows you to get data in from AWS. We also have function beat, that's the beat serverless for Lambda that you can use to ingest data from AWS. And you'll be able to enable some of the out-of-box rules that I'll cover in a minute that are specifically designed for AWS. So looking at and keep the questions coming. I'll try to answer them as I go through the demo here. So this is Kibana, and you can see here inside Kibana, there is some common shared functionality, regardless the type of data, regardless the use case. You can go in, you can use Discover to search the data, you can use dashboards to create visualizations. Canvas, think of Canvas as a live PowerPoint, live infographics powered by real data that you can customize to match your branding, the company branding, for example. And here, scrolling down the different apps inside Kibana, you can see applications that are designed for specific use cases. So we have enterprise search applications for observability. We have specific apps designed to visualize searcher logs, monitoring infrastructure using metrics, application performance monitoring, uptime. And scrolling down here, you see security, right? So you see here we have different areas of the security app. Again, this is the app that used to be called Elastic SIEM, with the addition of endpoint security capability and the protection capability. We rebranded it to Elastic Security. So that's the name of the solution and the name of the app within Kibana. So inside Elastic Security, the first view you get is like just a generic overview showing you, different events, where the events are coming from. This is just designed to be a simple overview page showing you if you have any alerts generated by the detection engine, external alerts. Again, this is not set up for a demo just yet, so there isn't a lot of data as it just came out. So these detection alerts are alerts generated by our detection engine. So for those of you that are familiar with Elasticsearch, you may have heard of Watcher. Watcher is another feature of Elasticsearch that allows you to schedule saved searches and have actions attached to matches. Detection engine is not a UI to Watcher. It's based on a Kibana alerting framework. That's a new framework we added to Kibana. So the role of Kibana is expanding. It has many services like notification service and so on that different solutions use. So in the case of Elastic Security, the detection engine is leveraging the alerting framework in Kibana to schedule these searches that are tied to these alerts. When you first sign up on Elastic Cloud or install Elastic yourself, you'll see the out-of-the-box rules, 203. I was close when I said about 200 earlier. And I have a question about no visual under dashboards, only under the SIEM app. So we keep adding, with supported log source types, if you're going, again, I don't know how much data I may have here in dashboards. We do add out-of-the-box dashboards tied to specific log source types. And you have the flexibility to, like in this case, we have some packet bit, like in the case of the AWS module, again, there's probably no data in here, but we do have out-of-the-box dashboards that are tied to log source types that we support, right? So again, a dashboard is a collection of visualizations all tied together that you can filter at the top. You're welcome to create your own dashboards. Again, for security analytics, it's very common to do that. The Elastic SIEM app, or the rebranded to Elastic Security, the idea behind Elastic Security is an interface for investigations to create, enable automated detection rules, and to do investigations using timelines. So I'm going to demonstrate that. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't use dashboards. You can use dashboards. It's just different purposes. Dashboards are great if you want to slice and dice the data and do some analytics. Elastic Security is really where you can administer all the functionality when it comes to detections, protections, and data collection for security events. Looking at out-of-the-box rules, right? So 200 out-of-the-box rules. If you look at the different types of rules, in the last, so we started with host data at the very beginning, starting with packet bit, winload bit data, telemetry you can get from network windows. The last few releases, we have been focusing on cloud and Linux. So we added a lot of Linux detections. And in the last release, we added quite a few detections that are tied to AWS. I know we got quite a few questions from, AWS, right? So these are some of the AWS rules that were released as part of 7.9. Another new feature that you'll see coming in the future right now, with each new release, you get new out-of-the-box content like machine learning jobs, detection rules. We are looking to decouple the capability of, refresh, release new detection rules. So you don't have to upgrade to a new version to get the new rules. You'll be able to just get new content that is applicable to the release, the version number that you're using. For example, there, 7.9, there are some detection rules that are threshold based. So you wouldn't be able to run those in 7.8, but those that are not threshold based, you can run on 7.8. So here, just to give you an example, looking at one rule, right? So you got the query. So this is KQL based, right? So all the rules we have today are either based on anomalies detected by machine learning. This is a commercial feature, platinum feature, or are based on a query that matches, right? So in this case, we have a KQL query that is looking at a specific type of event. The assumption here is that you're using the FileBit AWS module to collect these events. There are ways to get those events without using FileBit, right? So you can just use the ingest pipeline that we provide with FileBit. We're not going to get much into that today. And something to note here, so we have, for each rule, there is a severity and the risk score that we assign. Right now, this is static. We're looking to make that more dynamic going forward when it comes to the risk score. And you also see different reference URLs that are relevant to the specific type of event. And pretty much all the rules that we release are mapped to the MITRE ATT&CK matrix. So you'll see a tactic and a technique that is where this, this is basically tells the analysts, especially the junior analyst, why should I care about this type of event? Why should I be concerned if I see this type of rule pop up, this type of alert, pop up in my environment? And we also have the capability of adding an investigation guide. So some of the new rules that we have include some details in the investigation guide. You can create your own. So that's basically a playbook for the analysts to do investigation. For any of these rules, you can edit the settings. Again, this is an out-of-the-box rule, so I cannot change the definition, but you can clone it. If you want to change the query or the schedule, the workflow is to clone the rule and customize it. And here you have the capability of attaching, actions. So this is part of Gold Plus. So with the basic features, you get the capability of enabling rules, and you'll see detections being generated. Detection alerts being generated, and then like anything in Elastic, that's just a document in an index. So you can create reports on that, and you can analyze that data. If you want to get alerts, this is part of the Gold here. And you get out-of-the-box integration with Slack and Webhook for anything else. Getting to the new stuff in a minute, just for those of you that may have never seen this, touching the basics. So again, not much data in here. Host network view, this is not filtered. Anything that you can see here can be filtered. And by the way, you notice here, there is no drop down to pick the index pattern that you want to search. There is a setting on the back end where the administrator can configure. These are all the data buckets, including security data. The requirement is for all those index patterns to contain documents that comply with Elastic Common Schema in order to be able to use this interface. And here you can see different, authentication information and common processes. And any of the data elements that you can see here can be used to start an investigation. And this is also the workflow to analyze, to start the investigation from an alert. You open up the timeline showing all the events that caused an alert to trigger. That's how you do that. So think of timeline as query builder, graphical query builder, drag and drop, and also as a way to collect together all the different events that may be related to an incident. Depending on the type of event, like in this case, I'm drag and dropping an IP address, the information in timeline is displayed in a graphical way. So we call this event renderer, depending on the type of event. I pick like the wrong event. So if you pick like some endpoint security event or network event, you may see some data being transferred. Again, this is not a demo system set up for that. The idea here is to allow the analysts to persist different events that are related to an investigation. You know, save a timeline, give it a name. This information will persist. And you can also choose, if you give a name to a timeline, to attach a timeline to a case. So this is part of the workflow that analysts use for investigation. So as you can see, it's very tailored for the security investigations use case, dashboards and all of that. It's just data exploration, visualization, Elastic Security. You got more than that. So touching briefly on the new features here. So, apologies, my computer is running a little odd. So we have, can timeline be popped out of the current view in SIEM? So right now, timeline can only, you can only pop, can only use it within the Elastic Security app. That's something that is in consideration, I think. Because there is value of using timeline for other use cases as well. All right, so Ingest Manager. So this is the new feature that is based on Elastic Agent. Again, we're going from having, we have customers and users that have hundreds and thousands of beats deployed to ingest data. And as you can imagine, until now, it's quite, it's quite an effort to find a way to streamline the configuration and the management. The full screen, yes. Timeline can be full screen with 7.9. That's a new feature we added. So the idea behind, so first of all, two different topics here, two different parts of the same topic. Like one is Fleet, the other one is Elastic Agent. So Elastic Agent, single installer for Windows, Mac, and Linux that you deploy. You can attach a configuration to an installer. So you think of these as policies that you can create. Like in this case, I have an endpoint security policy that was created. And for each of these, you can edit the integration and go into the details. And again, in the case of endpoint security, there is some protection that can take place, like this endpoint security configuration. Generally speaking, in this case, the endpoint security is a sensor that generates information by gathering information from the kernel, right? So you can configure what type of events are generated. And you can also choose to enable malware protection. So that's a feature that is available for Windows and Mac, part of the basic tier as part of 7.9. So going back now to, and as you can see, there was a switch between Ingest Manager and Elastic Security app, right? So Ingest Manager, you configure the data integrations that you want to enable. If you enable endpoint security, the configuration of the endpoint security policy is actually done inside Elastic Security. So different configurations, and again, the configuration basically tells, you can assign configurations to agents. The configuration will first tell the agent, if you're looking to collect AWS event, guess what? You need to have the FileBit module with AWS module installed on the host in order to ingest those type of events. And all of that is managed. So there is no need for the security administrator, the security engineer, to know that you need to have a specific beat with a specific module. That's all going to be soon the past. You have a single agent, and you can choose what data integration you want to enable, and everything else is done for you. So we keep adding a lot of out-of-the-box configuration. So there are many experimental configuration data integrations that we just released. And we're looking to port all the integrations that we have done based on Bits modules to Elastic Agent as well. So this list will keep going, and the idea is that you see this experimental because we just released this. So it's that's why we say don't go in production just yet with Elastic Agent, but feel free to try and give us feedback as needed. Question I got, is sysmon still relevant using Elastic Endpoint Security product? That's a great question, right? So it depends on how you configure both, right? With sysmon can be super verbose in what it generates. Jamie, you may have some additional context. Feel free to add to that. The answer is that in this case, it's like it depends what they're using sysmon for. There is certainly a lot of overlap when it comes to process network DLL registry that now you'll be able to get with the agent. So the need for sysmon is going to be less and less and less. This just came out, and honestly, I'm being enabled myself on what Elastic Endpoint generates. So chances are that you won't need it anymore. Jamie.
Yeah, I would say that it's still, useful in some of the places where there isn't the data overlap yet, right? There's certain things that sysmon can collect that you might be, really using in your environment, and so it doesn't make sysmon irrelevant. We will document like the different types of data you can get, with our endpoint itself, and then you can decide where the overlap exists, and then where maybe sysmon is the superset of like all data you can get on a Windows system.
Thank you, Jamie. Other questions? Okay. For Elastic Agent and Fleet, what is the required license to use? So this is all part of the basic license. Okay, I covered the question about visuals under dashboards. So I got that covered. All right, so under Fleet, you'll be able to see all the agents that you have enrolled. You can see the configuration. They're currently assigned. Every time you change the configuration, a new revision is added, and all of that is tracked. And at any time, you can choose to assign a new configuration, right? So you can, for example, try out a new configuration on sublab machines, and as soon as you say, okay, this is the configuration that is giving me what I need, I'm going to assign that new configuration to other agents. And that will cause the agent again to, first of all, to download and install any modules that are needed to collect the new metrics or the new logs. Like, you may start collecting Nginx or Apache logs. And whenever you configure that, by the way, there is a setting where you can configure the, different data folder where to get the logs from and so on. All of that is managed centrally. And with Fleet, we also are introducing the concept of enrollment token, right? So whenever you add an agent, we're looking to streamline this more and more. So right now, the way it works, you have to download an agent manually on the systems, right? So, but once you do that, all you'll have to do is basically specify the configuration, that's the initial configuration that you want the agent to use. And all you'll have to do is run a couple of commands, right? So you're going to run Elastic Agent enroll. This is the URL of Kibana. By the way, Kibana, again, I mentioned it earlier that Kibana has evolved to not just be a window into Elasticsearch, but it has many different new services, including the managing of Fleet that is part of Kibana. And here you can see this enrollment key that is used to authenticate the agent with Kibana during that initial installation. Once you have done this initial install, you'll see all the agents checking in. You will see enrolling, then they go online. And from that point on, there is no need to go back down to the agent anymore. What we don't have just yet is the capability to remotely upgrade an agent, but that's something that will become available in the near future. So even the software updates when it comes to the Elastic Agent itself will be managed from Kibana in the future. How would new agents versions be handled? Yeah, so that will come with in a future release. My question is like, how do you handle new agent versions? Right now it's manual, so it will be again, this is the first release that has it. Chances are that the next minor release will also include, especially by the time we get GA. I think that's the target, to have the capability also to manage different versions and to upgrade agents remotely. All right. So we have a few more minutes. Any other questions about Ingest Manager, Fleet, or anything else? Investigation breakdown that looks similar. Okay, so the question is, can you show everyone the feature you mentioned with timeline, the investigation breakdown that looks similar to Endgame? I can try. This is a dev environment that was used to test 7.9 before it was released. I don't know if we have an actual, let me see if you have a save time, no save timeline. I don't know if I have any data that will show that to you. I have a slide that has that. Let's see, this is a local service command that will not show you that. So the new capability will allow you, and you'll see, okay, analyze event. Yeah, we have something. Here you go. So in this case, it's a very simple parent-child process tree. This is the new event analyzer that was added. And again, the way I got to this, whenever this is an alert generated by one of the detection engine rules that was enabled. From here, you can investigate in timeline. That's something that you could do in the past. That this is basically bringing up all the events that cause this rule to trigger, and you can certainly expand and look at the details. And even from here, you have this analyze event link. You also have it here that will allow you to open up this new visualization. And for each of these events, again, this is endpoint security data. So this is all data that was generated by the agent by gathering that from the kernel. You can get insights about all the different events that are tied to this specific point in time, this specific process. Yeah, so this got a question, another question. Do you see anyone using EDR data into Elastic SIEM security to use Elastic as a single pane solution? This endgame view looks like EDR. So the end goal for Elastic Security is to have a unified solution that includes SIEM and EDR. Right, so this is the beginning of that. 7.9 is the first release that has some endpoint functionality. Again, we don't have the response functionality yet. We do have some of the detection and some of the protection from EPP, right, coming with 7.9. With each of the next minor releases, you'll see more and more functionality get into feature parity with the technology that Endgame provides. So today we're selling Endgame, Elastic Endgame, as developed Endgame is still supported. So we do have quite a few customers that are using Endgame and Elastic together. As we believe in security to be open, we also have support for other EDR platforms. So we have recently released a CrowdStrike module, for example, for FileBit. For anyone using CrowdStrike, you can get data in Elastic Schema. Inside Elastic Security, you'll be able to use some of the same functionality here, including this visualization. What can Elastic do with CrowdStrike? So just mentioned, I'm going to show you the actual module documentation. We have a FileBit module. Again, all these FileBit modules, they're all gonna eventually roll out as Elastic Agent data integration. So what you can do today, if you're using CrowdStrike Falcon, you need to deploy the SIEM connector that will download events from the CrowdStrike cloud. and you can configure FileBit with this module to pull data from the SIEM connector, normalize it in Elastic Common Schema, and store it in Elastic. Once you have data in Elastic, like any other data, you can enable detection rules, you can create dashboards, you can do investigations, and so on. So it's a one-way integration, and I touched on this briefly. With any of these detection rules, you can attach actions. Actions may be just a notification like a Slack message, or it may be a webhook type of action. So that's how you can integrate with SOAR platforms, for example, or for with third-party tools. Okay, answer these. Any other questions about Elastic Security or anything Elastic that you would like me to answer before?
We have a new one in the Q&A, and I think Janie's answered a question in the chat.
I know, so one of the features that I haven't touched on much is case management. Case management functionality, and this is just the beginning, right? You can create cases. This allows for collaboration between analysts that are using Elastic Security for investigations. Something you can do here, you can push cases to third-party ticketing system. What we have today, right, let me go back here. I'll show you external connections. We added, and by the way, this is part of gold or platinum, so it's not part of the basic tier. So right now we have support for integration with ServiceNow, Jira, and IBM Resilience. I'm pretty sure dHive is somewhere on the roadmap. So I don't know specifics, but I know that we try to play with any open source product out there, including dHive, that I see out a lot being used. So I'm confident that sooner or later we'll have integration with the dHive as well. Right. Any other?
And
yeah,
Mateo, how deep can the agent today configure like the modules for FileBeat? Do we have yet the capability to like configure OS query module for FileBeat from our configuration tab?
We can try to have a look. So I know that all the the idea is that you shouldn't have to touch the endpoint where Elastic Agent is deployed. All the integration and configuration is done centrally, right? So let's pick this configuration. Hopefully I will not break anything. I'm gonna edit the integration. So we have system integration. This is the default, right? So this is just collecting system metrics. So I'm gonna add an integration. Okay, sorry, OS query. That's not available just yet. So I assume that will come. So we don't have feature parity just yet with what you can do with FileBeat modules and the integrations that are available today with Elastic Agent, but that's priority number one to get there. So chances are that by the next release you'll get there. And whenever let me just pick one, for example. So I pick Nginx, right? So you can see that you can add an integration name, and you have specific configurations that are using the default folder path, in this case for Nginx. And you can change these. So you can choose, do I want to collect just the logs from Nginx, or maybe also some metrics? And again, this all ties into the observability use case, right? Elastic Agent is not just designed for security, but also for observability. Question about, so to answer your question, Jamie, chances yes, not available just yet for OS query. So I have a question about detection rules that use the threshold feature, and I think we have some. Okta brute force or password spraying attack. This is a threshold rule, right? So this is the type of events that the rule is looking for. And this is looking at results aggregated by source IP greater than 25, right? This is a type of aggregation that is using the threshold rule. So is there, another question, is there a way to separate, to group data based on sub-organization if we have a master company with multiple locations and subordinate companies? Okay, so if so you can do that using the security features of the stack. When I talk about security in this context, I'm referring to role-based access control, and that's super granular. We have free security features that allow you to do basic security, like on a per index basis, right? If you want to get more granular, you would have to use some of the gold or platinum features for that. That would allow you to use any, common way of doing that. By the way, we have many customers that I work with, specifically that are MSSPs, right? So they're MSSPs, they serve multiple customers. And in many cases, they use a single Elastic deployment to do that. And in the way they segregate the data, right? Because they may have clients that have a co-managed type of service that they offer. Offer for them. So in that case, you just enrich the data with a tag, and you can create views that for customers, so they can only see their data. So that applies even to large companies where they have multiple divisions, and also for organizations that use that use security as a center of excellence for logging. So I work with quite a few organizations that are doing that, looking at security, managing Elastic, collecting, ingesting the superset of data, and granting different levels of access to different teams within the company. Right, any last questions before we wrap? I have a question for you. Have you found this useful, the format, the interaction? Any suggestions? Always welcome on how we can make this better in the future.
Yes, I just threw a link in the chat to a quick survey. It is super fast. Also, if you are using Elastic and you want to share how you're using it with other folks at a meetup, we would really love to hear from you. So there's a way through this survey link that you can send along your information if you'd like to speak at a meetup.
Question for you, Phoebe, in the chat, in the Q&A.
Let's see. So the best way is to join our AMER, or America's Virtual User Group. That's primarily where all of our meetup groups are either promoting or cross-promoting to. So say our Los Angeles user group has a security meetup, a security-focused meetup, they will cross-promote it to the AMER Virtual User Group. And so I'll throw the link in there to that, and go ahead and join that group if you aren't already a member. And that's the best way to stay on top of it. Once you're a member of that group, you'll get regular email updates, but not too many email updates on the upcoming events. So here's that link right here and here. All right, so that's the one I would join. That's where you're going to stay totally up to date on all of our events. And that's across the Americas region. It's also for Latin America and Canada. So if we run a meetup up in Canada that might be of interest to you, you'll also be notified of that through this AMER Virtual User Group. And all of our user groups for our different regions are on that website. So if you just go to community.elastic.co, you can join other user groups across the globe. And due to the virtual nature of things these days, if you stay up late, you can catch a lot of content out there.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Sorry, go ahead.
And any other last questions before we wrap for today? Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
To do more of these. You all have a great rest of your day.